Hey Matt, how are you?
Doing good, you?
Welcome to AI World.
Thank you so much, good to be here.
I'm doing well.
Glad you could make it as well.
Absolutely, well, I mean, couldn't miss it, you know. How many years have we been doing this now? This is, I think, my 15th.
15th?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I'm sure you've got a few more under your belt.
I've got a few more under my belt, yes.
So how's the week going?
Been very good, very busy, but
Yeah.
Good conversations with customers.
Excellent.
It's always good.
Excellent. So I know we know each other well, but for those of the audience that may not know you, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Matt Bradley. I run all of development for enterprise performance management globally at Oracle.
Excellent. And so what is the topic du jour? I mean, you know, obviously we're at AI World, or artificial intelligence. So, you know, what are some of the things that have come out in the EPM suite around AI?
Yeah, so that's fundamentally it's kind of like a Sesame Street thing. This week has been brought to you by the word AI. It's been brought to you by the word agentic and agent and all of that cool stuff. So that's where we're spending a lot of our time and energy in.
Yeah.
And trying to embed that with inside of the solutions that we have today. Really looking to improve productivity, improve accuracy, improve the overall experience that individuals are having with using the products. So.
Yeah, I mean, the tagline in Larry's keynote was AI changes everything, right? Mm-hmm. So what's it changing for EPM?
Well, I think ultimately it'll be over time. Obviously, we've been working on the more traditional machine learning for several years now, going all the way back, I think, to our time series forecasting over, 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And then obviously earlier this year, we introduced the advanced predictions, so the multivariate style predictions inside of the planning application. So we're seeing some real nice adoption in that. I think going forward, it's probably going to be more conversational style interactions. So rather than the traditional grid orientation that we're all very, very familiar with, moving more towards an insight-led to a conversational exploration to then a resolution action activity occurring. And doing all of that in a much more natural sort of conversational interface. So.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, you know, we were talking with some of your colleagues, and it seems like the interface of how we interact with data is also going to be changing with the AI adoption. So, you know, if you had to build Hyperion or Oracle EPM today, you know, what do you think would you do differently, or are you doing those things now?
No, we're starting on that trajectory. You know, there are still some resistance in the general market for AI. Finance, traditionally conservative, not necessarily the first adopters, but we have seen a hockey stick in terms of adoption over the last 6 months. Much more interest, a lot more people kicking the tires, turning on the features that are available. So that's given us the strength to basically go, okay, let's double down. Let's move to the next stage, and that's where most of the teams are currently working on. How can we reimagine their existing process in a completely different fashion? We pushed out glimpses of that in the Profitability and Cost Management agent. Mm-hmm. So the ability to manipulate or manage the model through English, through natural language, is sort of a trajectory that we go on in terms of how can we interact inside of that fashion, speeding up the usability of the overall interaction. So instead of clicking 20, 30, 40 times to make changes across multiple rules, just issue English to update a bunch of rules or a bunch of allocation methodologies fairly straightforward and simply.
So is the approach that you're taking on the end user experience, or is it the administrator of the application, or both?
Yeah, it'd be both, because also inside of the profitability agent, there's an additional capability, which is the interaction with the trace diagram. So how can you follow dollars through the entire allocation process from source to target and everything in between, and get a full explanation of that. So we provided a capability to converse with that visualization, if you want, and do explanation at that level. So it's both at the administrator level in terms of ongoing management and manipulation, and obviously with the end user interaction as well. Yeah.
Okay, got it. And you know, Oracle's seems like this is an enterprise-wide strategy, deploying AI across all of the applications and technology stacks.
Right.
How does a customer or anybody considering AI say, okay, well, do I build an AI agent in Oracle Cloud infrastructure? Do I do it in ERP? Do I do it in EPM? I mean, and what are the different trade-offs or pros and cons of doing those things?
So the advantage that we have, at least in our approach, is if the capability exists in the application that you're leveraging and using, then use it.
Okay.
Right? A couple of factors in that. One, it's included in your subscription. Right, so there's no additional outlay
so there's a
for that particular piece. There's a cost consideration on that. Two, there are elements that we provide, which we basically call the foundations of enterprise AI. So we've got the core infrastructure in place. We have the GPUs,
Sure.
we've got the capacity, we can run and execute that particular piece. We've put the security around it in terms of the data is not leaving Oracle OCI, so it's staying inside the four walls that is an Oracle data center. It's not been shared with other customers, it's not been shared with the large language vendor, and you've got then that confidentiality around your data, which is a very, very important asset. We also are providing what we call, trust. So how do you convince somebody that the responses coming back are correct? And a lot of that is sort of the explainability, the auditability of the AI. So we're providing a glimpse behind the curtain. This is what AI is doing. Here's how it arrived at its decision. Here's the process that it went through. So you can be very, very comfortable in terms of knowing and understanding the context that's been given and how that should work and operate.
Yeah, I mean, because large language models, by their nature, are probabilistic in nature.
Correct.
And so, what are some ways that customers can get comfortable with? We see the proof of how this has happened and what the machine is doing behind the scenes, so that we can have faith in that number. I mean, obviously, a calculator seems like magic when you first see it, but
right.
Nobody's asking how a calculator works anymore, right?
Right. So that's ultimately just building up that trust, and that's where by having that sort of view behind the scenes in terms of this were the inputs to the large language model. This is what it leveraged and used, and this is what the corresponding output is.
I know you cover the entire EPM stack, right? So can you go into maybe some detail on what you're doing with financial close versus planning and budgeting, and
Sure.
How those different agents are going to interact with the application?
Yeah, we're more advanced in certain areas than others, generally just given its heritage and to a certain extent the nature of the user community around those processes. So planning was a little bit more approachable with AI in terms of we're leveraging it for predictions and forecasting, et cetera, whereas consolidation, not as much. So on the planning side, it's fundamentally taking our advanced predictions and then extending that further. So we're looking at expanding our explainability.
Okay.
So we can indicate to you which features are actually influencing the model and which features are not, and therefore helping you correct the model for increased accuracy, because sometimes too many features overcomplicates the model.
Sure.
You lead with a suboptimal response, and so it's trying to right size what you're fundamentally doing inside of that particular arena. The other area that we're working on is what we call feature engineering, which is a very, very fancy way of saying you've got certain drivers. Those drivers may not be the most appropriate ones to leverage and use. Sometimes we need to generate new drivers out of those drivers that are actually better and more effective of doing the forecast. So simple example is marketing spend. Mm-hmm. Marketing spend this month does not equate to revenue generated this month, but marketing spend over the last 3 months does.
Okay.
So we'll then generate a cumulative marketing driver, if you want, and then add that to the model so the model then gets better.
Oh, interesting. So you're saying that drivers, the input drivers, can be generated by the AI, and they can surface new ones that maybe the business hasn't been using it. Okay.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, because I know that when we implement driver-based planning, that's a big part of the project is determining those
determining
things.
which are the right ones. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
So that's nice. Is there a difference between how you approach that prediction with text versus the numeric outputs?
So right now we do a blend, if you know what I mean. So in terms of our advanced predictions are machine learning oriented, traditional data science. Okay. So it's not using a generative-based approach.
Okay.
Now what we do use the generative is for the explanation.
Right.
To turn some of that complex statistical information into more easy readable form for an average finance person to know and understand.
Okay, got it. And so I know there's also the Fusion AI Agent Studio in the ERP side. How does that play into what EPM is doing? Is that something that would be available for EPM users, or?
It will be available eventually for EPM users. We're working on that particular piece. Our first goal is let's get some agents together. We will be rolling out agents across the board. Obviously, we talked a little bit about the PCM agent. We have the planning capabilities. We'll have similar capabilities in consolidation at various different levels. Everything from script generation to generation of narratives to explain what the consolidation is fundamentally doing, to mechanisms that help you improve the overall performance in data quality inside the consolidation process, identifying problems and offering suggestions to how to fix and correct that particular piece. So we're really, applying those conditions first and getting those core agents together. The next stage then is to extend these inside of the Fusion AI Studio. And then inside of Fusion AI Studio, the primary goal is to how can I build more complex workflows. So I can stream some of these agents together to work as a team to then go solve more complex issues and problems. And it's not your traditional workflow, it's providing some reasoning behind it. So decision tree, instead of doing this, do this, or when these conditions occur, do something else, and been able to work our way through more complex routing of activities that we basically see been part and parcel of the studio. And then the ability for customers to create their own agents, for partners to create agents, to just round off that entire ecosystem.
Yeah.
Because there's, we have our view as to what's needed and required, but somebody may come up with a great, email agent, or a great notification agent, or an agent that does an integration with a third-party system that we don't have. Or, I think ultimately what we'd like to see is the ability for our planning agent to take a feed from, a reputable internet source and use that to feed into the model.
Yeah.
So, weather. There's
Right.
no point of storing weather forecast information on EPM, but I could go grab it, use that as an external influencer, and then have that drive a sophisticated multivariate planning model. But
Yeah.
use Agent Studio to stitch all of that together.
It seems like the possibilities are almost endless there, right? I mean, you can bring in, CPI or GDP or,
Right.
interest rates.
Interest
right?
rates,
Yeah.
all those kinds of things, yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
okay.
Now you can do it today, you just have to store it inside of our system, but that obviously comes with a level of staleness.
Sure.
This gets you a much more dynamic mechanism for doing those things, and
Okay.
opens up, as you say, a whole range of other possibilities out there.
Absolutely. So in terms of timing, I know that it's hard to commit to anything, but can you give a general idea on when some of these things will be available for the
Yeah, so
future
we're
market?
operating on AI time, which is a lot faster than regular time. So most of what we actually displayed and demoed here at AI World is within the 6 to 9 month
Okay.
time frame. So we're looking at this. Some of the pieces that we've talked about will come out before the end of this year. Some will then drift into the first quarter, second quarter, and then towards the end of the year will be Fusion AI Studio enabled safe harbor applies. At that point, that's where we're sort of shooting for. So fairly rapid.
Awesome. So going back a step and talking about the broader EPM market, there's obviously lots of competition, and Hyperion and Oracle have been kind of at the forefront of that for many years. How do you see your AI strategy and how it differs from some of your competition?
I think the advantage that Oracle has is, or we have been inside of Oracle, is that all of the innovation that's been done on the tech side of the house is available for us. So as the database improves, adds in things like vectorization, semantic search, make that native, we can just pick it up and leverage it. A lot of the other competition have to rely on an external party to provide those. So it gives us the ability to move quicker, faster, influence that technology in terms of getting the feature function that we need in order to run and operate. So it does give us a significant advantage in terms of being able to use these native capabilities inside of the technologies that we have from that standpoint. The other advantage we have is obviously we run the entire stack, right? So things like getting access to GPUs, getting access to the appropriate infrastructure is just part and parcel of the Oracle SaaS approach, and so it basically removes that challenge, if you want, and
Right.
to a certain extent that cost
Okay.
off the table in terms of the deployment. So we can do this embedded, included based approach for the seeded agents that we have in place, rather than with a lot of our competition, they're having to require additional funding in order to pay for that additional hardware because they're pulling it in from other vendors and having to pass that through their customers.
Yeah.
So we do have some economic advantages and then some core technology advantages.
Yeah, so the recent OpenAI partnership that was announced, is there any visibility to like which models, or does it even matter what models?
We'll end up in a certain models are better than others for certain activities, and so we will do the engineering to figure out what is the best model for that given activity, and use that as a default. As we move forward with Fusion AI Studio, we then have the option for customers to override that and actually decide that they want to elect and use a different model.
Okay.
Now that may come at additional cost, but we're providing that flexibility in terms of being able to
choose your own model.
choose your own model to a certain extent. And I would say the majority of the models that are out there are all running and available inside of our infrastructure from OpenAI, from Gemini, from et cetera, all of the names that are out there.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. Does Oracle have a plan to develop their own language model?
Nope. Nope.
Yeah, let those guys handle it?
They're handling that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, I know this is AI world and we all want to talk about AI, but, what are some of the traditional or, more so core features that are coming out in EPM that, may not be AI specific, but are more platform oriented for EPM users that, may or may not be ready for AI yet?
Yeah. I mean, we'll continue to do the standard investment around those particular areas. It's not all AI. There are other things that we are working and looking to deliver. So operational modeling will be one of the big ones in our I would say our more platform orientation. So that's the ability to go after plans that require a level of transactional detail and calculations at a transactional level.
Got it.
Yeah. Revenue planning at subscriber, or you may do some analytics at a PO level, or a much more transactional level style of detail. So that's something that we're investing in and be able to bring that forward. And then link that to our multi-dimensional world that we all know and love in terms of aggregating up through the attribution that's in place and providing that slice dice experience that a lot of our customers love. Absolutely, that we have today. So that's one big area that we're working on. A lot of it's just the standard incremental improvements in terms of what we currently have in place. So we're uplifting to a new version of Essbase, making that available. We're doing uplifting to new versions of Fusion middleware, making those available. And so we'll continue to invest in the core infrastructure and make sure it's state of art.
Yeah.
And pushing those pieces out and then gaining benefits from that. So improved performance, improved reliability, et cetera, that we're gaining as we keep pace with the innovations at the lower down in the stack.
Right.
Yep.
So I know when PBCS was released in 2014, there was one module, and then you added several more over the last several years. What are some of the newer, maybe planning modules that some customers maybe don't know about yet or haven't turned on yet? Yeah.
So I think the big one was probably the predictive cash forecasting model. So that has been, I believe it's been in the market just over a year, maybe a little longer, 18 months or so. But again, not as necessarily well known as, say, financial planning or projects or workforce or CapEx. So, predictive cash is fundamentally looking at that sort of the inflows and outflows of cash and giving you an accurate position as to where you would be on a short to medium term basis. And the overall goal is to really optimize working capital.
Right.
So
definitely topic
which is top of mind for a lot of customers.
Absolutely.
So that's one area. We will be sort of expanding that further, looking at other line items that may need some additional help, but also have got a degree of consistency, business to business, vertical to vertical, so that we can have a good addressable market.
Okay. Yeah. So we work a lot on educating customers on how to get started on their AI journey, because you probably have seen this too, where every board or every executive is saying we need an AI strategy, we have budget for it. How do we get started? And then the first question is, well, what's the use case? What are some suggestions you have for folks that are looking to get started and how they can, dip their toe in the water, so to speak?
Yeah, so we would generally encourage them to start with insights, or we call it intelligent performance management, which is fundamentally looking at your data and having your data describe things that you may need to pay attention to. Variances, bias, historical trends, anomalies, those kinds of things, and start in that fashion, because you immediately get a tremendous gain. I know even internally at Oracle, when we switched it on, they found out things they didn't know. It's like, who knew we were doing that? Yeah. And it's just, because most people, when they do analytics, you're approaching it from, I have a problem, now let me go solve. Right. And sometimes it needs to go the other way. The data is saying, this is where the issue is.
It's more
rather than,
inductive rather than deductive.
Yes, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So it ends up being, it's an interesting twist. But I would generally encourage them to start with that. It's fairly easy to turn on, and you can get up and running, relatively quickly. We have been running a series of initiatives for our customers, where our pre-sales team will sit down with a customer for an hour, turn on the feature, and they go home and they've got some AI ready running in production.
Wow.
So it is pretty quick to get this turned around. In saying that, it is data driven, so there are We do find customers where your data is just not at a quality level where you're going to get value, so you have to go back and do some of the hard work in terms of improving that data quality.
Still the garbage in and garbage
Still
out.
yes, yes. Yeah, you're going to get an answer.
Right.
The question is it a good answer?
Yeah.
And a lot of that's going to be dependent upon your data. And it's simple things that we're encouraging customers to start to think about now. So we see people get, I would say, lazy by, if I take, say, enterprise data management, right? So managing hierarchies, managing, chart of accounts, not putting in sufficient descriptions. Or having the same description several times.
Right.
Which fundamentally means when you do a semantic search against that, or when you do AI against that, it may not find the right context because you just haven't given it enough information.
Sure.
And it sounds trivial, but it's just one of those, there's a certain level of discipline that's needed to ensure your descriptions are up to date. There's no point having 20 accounts that all say cash equivalent. Because you can't find anything at that point in time. And so it's really, having discipline around that governance is extremely important.
Would you say it's almost a prerequisite?
It is. I mean, I would say it will become more and more of a table stakes in terms of being able to do this. The challenge that we will have as an industry as a whole is your definition of revenue may be different than your peers' definition of revenue inside of the same company, but they're used to having those differences because they're operating on off a spreadsheet, and in the spreadsheet they're fixing or fudging the data in order to reflect what they view as the right response.
Okay, maybe I'm not totally clear on that. So obviously you have context that's built into the application that the AI is using, but would the AI not know like the difference between a revenue account from one business?
It would, yeah. The challenge is more in case of if you my definition of revenue includes maintenance and support. Your definition of revenue just includes subscription.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
But we both call it revenue.
Yeah, right.
So when I ask for revenue, I want to see these two added. When you ask revenue, you just want to see that one line.
Got it. Yeah.
And that's where you sort of get into it gets complicated pretty quick.
Right.
Inside of finance. In terms of, because it's my context, it's not,
exactly.
And so that's really, how do you deal with that? And you can go through, let's properly call things out. You can no longer ask for revenue, you have to ask for subscription revenue. And so that then forces the issue to be more explicit so you get the appropriate response coming out from the model.
Yeah, no different from ChatGPT, right? The more context you provide, the better the answer you get.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. Well, we have quite a lot of innovation coming out. And do you think that customers are ready to adopt it, or how have customers, do they have to, I guess, adopt some of the core technology first before they can turn on these things, or can they just jump right into AI?
There are certain prerequisites in terms of you need data to start with, right? And the general rule of thumb that we've been advising customers, if you looking to forward project a year, you need about 2 years worth of history, right? And the question really has, what is the approach to loading in history? Has there been a significant operational change in the last 2 years? Because if you're loading data that was before the change, it may overfit the model, and therefore it may not necessarily be what you want to do. And so you may have to wait, because we made a change 6 months ago, all I have is 6 months worth of data. Because the data beforehand is not useful for forward-looking activities. So there is a little bit of that they have to work through. So it's not all free, if you know what I mean. But for established customers, you do have a good solid data set. We can move fairly quickly and turn these things on fairly quickly, and have them gain value out of that.
So then, for the customers that maybe don't have, let's say, planning today, and they're still in Excel, would you recommend that they start off with traditional planning and then move into AI, or can they?
We'd probably encourage them to move to a driver-based plan. So from that standpoint, and get used to doing that. And then the other thing that we would encourage folks is to move away from an AOP into a rolling monthly, get used to exercising the planning muscle, reforecasting muscle on a more frequent basis. Because that's the change management that needs to occur.
Sure.
And then once that's in place, you then optimize by applying machine learning.
Right. No, I remember.
And having the individuals react to a generated number rather than put the number in themselves.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, honestly, we implement a lot of planning solutions, and most companies are still operating on this annual budget, mindset, and it's a cultural shift too,
Yep.
right? Because I know that when we built it in Hyperion back in the day, there's quite a bit of customization required to get a rolling forecast to work, but now it's a feature
It's a
that
feature.
you check
Yeah.
the box and
Yeah.
turn it on. So, but what we find is that, customers that have that cultural mindset, that's really the most difficult part of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And AI isn't gonna fix that.
Yeah, that's right. So where do you see this going in the next 10 years? I mean, are we going to be able to have a CFO walk into a board meeting and say, what's my current working capital, and get an answer?
That will happen. I mean, the more interesting question we get into, and again, it's that sort of mindset change. The board meetings tend to operate on static snapshots because they don't want the number to change. So I take the static snapshot, I understand what it means at that point in time, and when I go to the board meeting, I don't want to refresh that and have some different number show up, right? So the question really gets into, will we get to the point where it can become much more continuous, where we don't have to do the static snapshot, do that analysis because it takes so much time that it becomes stale, and can we get at the point where we can actually do it on the fly? So our part of our say, vision, if you want, is the board meeting will occur, say, in Teams or Zoom, and you'll invite the planning agent to the conversation.
Interesting.
And the CFO will then ask the planning agent, what is the current working capital, and it will then display it and then give an explanation and help organize the thought process down through that piece.
Sure, yeah. I mean, we talk to CFOs a lot, and they've got lots of questions, and the turnaround time right now is the biggest challenge.
It's the biggest challenge. Yeah, and that's ultimately where we're I know there's a certain concern, fear about will AI replace the financial analyst, et cetera, et cetera. I think for the immediate future, it's going to be more a case of you used to only be able to answer the 5 questions your CFO has. Now you can answer the 10 questions that he has.
Right.
So it's that increased capacity, that increase in
Sure.
throughput is really the significant driver that we're expecting to see. That's true.
Yeah. Well, Matt, it was great chatting with you. Thank
Good,
you so
as
much,
always.
and I hope you had a great time this week. I look forward to seeing you next time.
Great, thank you.
Take care.